To become a master leader, we must master our thoughts and emotions. That's our topic today, right here on the Remarkable Leadership Podcast. Are you ready? Let's go.
Welcome to the Remarkable Leadership Podcast. We are here each week to help you lead more confidently and make a bigger difference, both professionally and personally. This episode is sponsored by Kevin's free weekly e-newsletter, Unleashing Your Remarkable Potential, which is full of articles and resources to help you become a more confident and successful leader. Sign up by going to remarkablepodcast.com/newsletter. And now, here's your host, Kevin.
Well, we have a double treat for you today on the Remarkable Leadership Podcast. You'll find out about both after I introduce my guest. My guest today is Todd Stottlemyre. Todd is a former Major League Baseball pitcher who pitched for 15 years in the major leagues, most notably as a member of the Toronto Blue Jays, where he won 2 world championships. He also played for the Oakland Athletics, the Cardinals, the Rangers, and the Diamondbacks. Awarded for his outstanding integrity and dedication to community service, he received both the prestigious Branch Rickey Award and the Lou Gehrig Award. After leaving baseball, he pursued a career in finance, building an asset management business at a high-profile Wall Street firm. He is the co-founder and owner of a private equity fund that owns, manages, and oversees a number of companies. Today, though, Todd channels his passion for winning as a high-performance business coach, best-selling author, and keynote speaker. That's why he's here. Taking all that he has learned both on and off the field, he works to help people achieve unparalleled success in every dimension of their life. His latest book, The Observer, A Modern Fable on Mastering Your Thoughts and Emotions, was recently released. And today he's our guest. Todd, welcome.
Kevin, thank you. I appreciate it. And humbled and honored and grateful. Shows like yours to have me on as a guest to get the message out. So I really appreciate being here today.
It's my pleasure. So I told my wife yesterday, I said, well, I'm interviewing a World Series champion. Now we've had a Grammy Award-winning rock star, a Super Bowl champion, lots of other people, of course, and now a World Series champion. So I'm super excited to have you here, Todd. And I'm going to ask you more about your journey as it relates to the book in a minute, but I ask almost every guest, just sort of the high level, tell us about your journey. I think about your story as having at least 3 acts. There's baseball and finance, and now what you're doing. Just give us a high level trajectory of your journey.
Yeah, very good. So, really, I think in fairness, it all started for me growing up. My father was a pitcher for the New York Yankees, and I say he's a legend in his own right. He was my hero, and he passed away 2 Januaries ago. But growing up in that atmosphere, that environment, I truly went to work every single day with my father on home games. My brothers and I, we put our Yankee uniforms on, and we would go to the stadium. It was our playground. We laugh today. It's like Monument Park and Yankee Stadium was like our monkey bars. So it's pretty crazy. And we had a dream that was inspired, from that environment, and that was to follow in my father's footsteps. And it worked out for us. And, I got a chance to, kind of, as you say, I got a chance to play 15 years, live that dream out. But, baseball doesn't last forever, or you can't play the game forever. And so, I retired from baseball. I was 37, and it was kind of like, now what? And just by circumstance, I loved the markets and, of course, that over the course of my career, we had financial managers. I was learning the process and so went to work for a Wall Street firm and built an asset management team. And then I found myself, I'm like, man, I don't want to be working in an office the rest of my life. And so I decided to depart, even under great terms. It was a great firm, and had a great time, built great relationships. But and then, through the years, wrote my first book about 5.5 years ago. And then this book has really been bugging me to write it, and got a chance to get it done, and I'm excited about it. And then today, like when I teach or speak, or I go somewhere corporately, or I speak to corporations, I always tell them, I say, listen, I'm going to give you opinions based on experience, things I went through, people who helped me overcome where I was at. I failed miserably in my life. I had great people around me. I'll share with you those experiences. If they're going to fit for you, then great. But I don't teach or train anything that I've never experienced or I didn't go through in some fashion or form. So, and then, the making in this book. So I'm excited to be here. It's been a great ride. It has been a number of different acts. It's almost like I've had 3 or 4 or 5 different careers. And it's funny because you say that, and, I have 5 children, and I tell them, I'll talk to my 18, 19-year-old, and they're like, Dad, I don't know what we want to do. I said, don't worry, I'm 55. I'm still recreating and reinventing. I said, you got your whole life, follow your heart, man, follow your heart. So here I am.
So do you have any pictures? Any of the kids, do they want to follow that?
I have 4 daughters and I have 1 son. My son is 15. He is he just loves baseball. He plays on his high school team. He's a freshman, and then he plays club baseball. He loves it. When he was a little bit younger, he also played flag football and played basketball. So he's a little athlete and loves to play. So it's great.
One never knows. Maybe there'll be
who knows?
Yeah. Okay, so before we get to Act 3, the book and all that, and I want to get there for sure, but I don't get a big league ball player on the show every day, and so for those of you who aren't baseball fans, I'm sorry, you got to listen anyway. So I really, actually, what I want you to do though is to tie that experience of being a ball player, a professional at the highest levels, to all the rest of us, right? So, what's a story that maybe typifies growing up as the son of a big league ball player? Maybe something that would apply, that all of us could take advantage of, even though we didn't have that experience.
Yeah. So, as it relates to maybe life or relates to business, I love the story. And in 1992, I was a pitcher for the Toronto Blue Jays. At the time, my father was a pitching coach for the New York Mets. So we were both in the major leagues, but he was in the National League. I was in the American League. So he didn't get a chance to see me play. But at this particular moment, I was struggling so bad. And, as a starting pitcher, your goal is to get as deep into the game as you can, right?
Right.
I wasn't even making it to the 5th inning, start after start. And I was just getting, bombed, crushed. Guys were, scoring lots of runs. And it happened about 3 or 4 starts in a row. And when, as a starting pitcher, you pitch every 5 days, that's like a bad month. And bad month in the sport, you kind of start looking over your shoulder, you're like, wow, but I called my father and I said, Dad, I'm struggling. And he goes, man, I see that. And
he wasn't watching, but he could read the box scores, right?
Yeah. And I said, and he'd been watching, kind of ESPN, seeing some videos. And I said, Dad, I said, when I make a good pitch, they get a hit. And when I make a bad pitch, they're hitting like doubles, triples, and home runs. And here's what he said. He says, actually, I've watched a lot of your film. I don't see you making many good pitches. Here's the point. A coach will always see what you don't see when you're in the heat of battle. They have a different perspective. So at this time, that truth perspective kind of hurt. I'm like, wow, I'm not making good pitches. But then he followed up with something else that was really important. He said, Todd, he says, if you'll do these 3 things, you'll dominate. And I was like, wow, Dad, I don't need to dominate. I just need to do good. I've been really bad for so long. Just a good, he says, trust me. Point number 2 was he was lending me his belief when I lacked belief. So important when you think about a coach. And then he said, I want you to do these 3 things. He says, when you work on in between starts, he said, stay back in your delivery. He says, finish strong and think down in the strike zone. He says, if you'll do those 3 things, you'll dominate. Now, I'm a major league pitcher. So staying back, finish strong, thinking down, that's easy. That's getting back to the basics. That's keeping something very simple. He goes, there's one more thing. And I was like, I knew it couldn't have been that easy. And he says, on the bill of your cap, on your game cap in big bold letters, I want you to write KISS. He goes, now, do you know what that stands for? And I said, KISS. He goes, keep it simple, stupid. And then he says, but do you know what keep it simple, stupid stands for? And I'm like, I'm confused. He said, keep it simple, stupid stands for stay back, finish strong, think down. I said, Dad, I got this. My next game, I went out and pitched. I threw a one-hit shutout in Comiskey Park against the White Sox, and I almost threw a no-hitter. I didn't give up the hit until the 8th. But here's the point, and here's how it's relatable. Couple things. Number one, if you're banging your head against the wall in business or life, find a coach that can get you through it. And they'll not only give you a different perspective, they'll give you the belief of it being possible. The second thing that I believe is so important that happened on that phone call is, in life, things boil down to about 3 to 5 things. And if you'll identify, and especially in business, if you'll identify the 3 to 5 things and master those, watch what happens to your success. So that was a great time. That was a point where I was failing miserably, but that lesson and that instruction from my father, I now carry into all of my businesses. I carry it into my life. I carry it into my daily routines. It has become a part of me. So there you go.
Thank you, everyone, for joining the Remarkable Leadership. No, like, that's enough. Like, seriously, everybody, you got your money's worth, and you're not even paying to be here. That's awesome. I mean, as a sports guy, I love the sports part of it, but the message is perfect. It's just absolutely fantastic. I think there's some connections. I didn't want to jump too quickly to the new book, but I do want you to talk about, Todd, and you talk about it in the book, so I kind of know the answer.
Yeah.
But everyone watching, listening, don't yet. What led you to write this book?
Yeah, so I'll try to keep it condensed because it spans over several years. But 1993, we just won our second world championship. So in Toronto, we won back-to-back championships, 92, 93. And here I am in my late 20s. I'm living out my childhood dream. I'm making millions of dollars. And now I'm a 2-time world champion. From the outside, I'll look great. And it's like, man, this guy's got it all. Big problem. When I looked into the mirror, the person staring back at me, I despised that person. I couldn't stand him. I even will go as far to tell you I hated that person. See, I was living in darkness on the inside. On the outside, looked great. On the inside, and I was in a very dark place. 12 years prior to that, my little brother, Jason, he was 11. I was 15 at the time. I had given him a bone marrow transplant. It was on his 3rd bout of leukemia. The doctor said it was his only chance. I was the perfect match. My marrow eventually put him into a coma that took his life. Tragic for our family, tremendous sadness. And I'll say to your listeners, somebody listening today has gone through that story where as a parent, they had to bury a son or a daughter, and it's just the most unbelievable, unfortunate thing ever. But I lost my brother, and I felt guilty that I was a part of losing him. So I not only left the hospital with traditional sadness, I left with hate and guilt. The problem is, it didn't matter what my parents told me. It wasn't your fault, this and that. You did everything you could do. I'm 15 at the time, and I'm just like, it's my fault, and I'm going through this. And as I continue to tell myself this story, I begin to rewire my insides about that story. And then what happens to me is I become very aggressive. So anytime I can't control something, or I'm not doing well at something, the emotions that will come to the surface is hate and guilt, and it really will ruin the mastery of the moment. And I tell people, I had built a prison that I'd locked myself in. It was the prison of unforgiveness and not letting go. In 1993, after the World Championship, I got home and I was just tired of emotionally landing in the same place, same result, same outburst, same hate, all the same stuff. And I was a person, I was like, people weren't telling me you needed help. I knew I needed help because I wanted to get better, not only on the field, I wanted to be a better person off the field. So I was craving a way out of this mess. I reached out to a guy by the name of Harvey Dorfman. He wrote The Mental Game of Baseball. He was the mindset guru for Major League Baseball. I called him. I said, Harvey, this is Todd Stottlemyre. He says, I've been waiting on your call. And I was like, wow, Harvey, I didn't even know you knew who I was. And I said, Harvey, I said, I need help. He goes, I know. We booked a 2-hour meeting in a hotel room. That meeting lasted 12 hours. In the first hour of that meeting, Harvey asked me the question, would you do it again? And I said, would I do what? He said, would you give a bone marrow transplant to your little brother again? I was like, wow. I said, I do it every minute. I do it every hour, every day. I do it over and over and over if it would help. And he said to me, Todd, didn't you already do that? I said, yeah. He said, did you do everything you could do? He says, yeah. He says, you see, Todd, you're not God. You can't control the outcome. You've already done this. It is time you forgive yourself and let it go. You did not kill your little brother. I bawled like a baby, bawled. And when I was done, it was like so liberating. It was like the first time in my life someone gave me the permission to just let it go. So it wasn't like it just happened overnight, the healing, right? I'm 55 today. I still have times where I fail, or I might have a small outburst where I'll catch myself. But here's what Harvey did in the last hour. He said, Todd, I'm going to put you on a 7-day challenge. You're not allowed to respond or react to any stimulus, anything that gets your mind going or your emotions going. He says, you can't respond. You can only document. He says, and then what you're going to do is you're going to document the way you're thinking and how you're feeling. And in 7 days, we're going to build you a tool chest that's going to help you stay in peak performance when you're there and help you get into peak performance when you need to get there. More importantly, when you start to feel these emotions, we're going to give you tools that stops it and allows you to move into a different state of being so you can be the best person you can be. This was the beginning of The Observer. I've been wanting to write this story since 1993, and today here we are.
And now we've got it. And so I want to talk more about the book specifically, because the book is a fable. It's not about you, although clearly I knew some of this. I obviously know more of it, and you can see the autobiographical component of it. And so, but before we get to some of the key ideas in the book, which I know are some of the things that helped you get to where you are, you talk about living a life with anger and resentment and guilt and all those things. And the book helps us see a way past that if we're experiencing it.
Right.
Other than Harvey, did people know? Like you said, hey, I could feel this inside. I knew that it was a problem. I guess here's why I'm asking. I'm asking because all of us that are watching or listening may well have someone in our life that's hurting in a similar way. And I guess my real question is this, other than reading the book,
right?
What advice would you give to us as leaders, as parents, as friends, as siblings,
so
to offer help if we see something? What would you
things.
Suggest that we do?
A couple of things. Number one is the book isn't just for people who are hurting. Number one, so
for sure,
it's really to help you pursue your best self, right? But the message came from my mess in a place where I was dark, right?
Right.
I would tell you that if there's someone listening today, they're flat on their back. Maybe they're staring at a bottle of pills on the deal, and they're thinking about that's their way out. Or maybe they're tasting the end of a gun barrel, and they're like the taste of metal, and they believe that, that there's not a better way for them, and they think that that's their way out. Or maybe they've turned to alcohol and drugs, or they've gone down a road, or maybe they're in the mindset that that they're not like everyone else. They can't succeed in this and that. Let me send a message to all of those groups and all of the pain that goes along with it. I want to rest assured. I want you to know there is a better way. First of all, there's a better way. Number one, you got to want help. And I wanted help. So you can't help someone who doesn't want the help, who wants to say. And number two is our current circumstances. We need to give them a different perspective. See, Harvey gave me a different perspective, a different way to look at things. He was like, first of all, screwing up, failing, and your current circumstance, it's okay, because it's all there to help you get better if you'll give it the perspective that those things are the teachers. Your pain today is a teacher. The question is, what will you do about the pain? And do you want help away from the pain? Harvey gave me something for my mindset that was to this day I practice it. It's called the 180-degree mindset. And that 180-degree mindset says this: if I've got an awful thought, and by the way, look, to this day, I'll have some thoughts and I'm like, time out, Todd, where's your mind going here?
Yep.
Right? Because we're built fight, flight, survive. We're built sometimes to be negative. But in this instance, that 180-degree mindset works this way. I go, whatever negative thought I'm having, what's 180 degrees from there is an opposite, which makes it a positive. So when I have a negative thought, the first thing to do is to observe the thought, create awareness around what am I thinking? And then my thinking says, and then the question is this thinking going to help me or hurt me? If it's going to hurt me, I need to replace the thought and focus on something opposite of it. Now, when I have a positive thought, I now begin to focus on the positive thought. By doing that, I take the focus off the negative thought, and now all of my energy starts to flow to the positive thought. And when my thought drives an emotion, then I start to feel differently, and I'm going to a different state of being. And the beauty of that is that emotion will then drive an action, right? So it's really kind of this little puzzle we put together. That's why, it's the awareness, it's the clarity. How do we think and how do we feel? But this also the understanding that you don't have to stay in that state. We are human beings, and we've been gifted the power to change how we think and how we feel anytime. Now watch this, anytime we want, but we have to want to.
We have to want to.
See, some people love wallowing in their current circumstances. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I'll have people say, Todd, you can't believe how bad my day's going. I'll be like, I don't really want to hear it. Right? And or you'll hear this conversation. Man, you're not going to believe it. I'm having the worst day. Oh, you think you're having a bad day? Let me tell you about my day. And pretty soon, all we're doing is wallowing in a pool of negativity. Well, and as we continue to focus there, what do you think you're going to continue to get?
More of the same.
More of it. We have to change our perspective, number one. And then you have to have a tool of what to do with the perspective. And that's where Harvey gave me that 180-degree mindset. And he also, my father was pivotal in this. He was like, listen, forget about perfection. The idea is to pursue how good can you become. But on your way there, you're going to fail all along the way. Use the failures as teachers. So you have to be able to reflect. Goes to another model in the book. Study our past performances. Look for new alternative strategies to get around the wall that's keeping us from moving forward.
As you're saying that, I'm sitting here thinking, 80% of the motivational speakers on the planet use baseball as the point for that and say the best hitters ever only hit 300, right? Like it's so, I mean, that's just what rolled through my head as you were saying that. Like there's no way in the sport that you were a champion in, as an outsider, right? It's like, there's no way you can be perfect at it. And yet when you're in it, and that's, I think, a part of the idea of this book, which takes us to the title of the book, which is The Observer. So what does that word, what does it mean to you to be an observer?
Yeah, to kind of really, to step back, right? And it started with Harvey, where he put me on this 7-day challenge. And he said, you're not allowed to respond or react, only document. I want you to stop and think about that for a second. And it's like, and then we're going to go back and take a look at the country and the world in 2020 as we're going through COVID, as we're going through a political race, as we've gone through race issues. Have people stood back before they responded, or did the jerk respond with hate and anger and frustration? See, and I use that as an example, and it's not funny because it's really serious about where we are as a country and where we are as a people. See, I always tell people, people's first reaction tells you what's going on inside of them. And look, my first reaction that showed up when times got tough: hate, guilt, anger, frustration, explosions. And how come that was my response? Because the inside of me was dark and angry and hateful. And all I was doing was showing the world who I truly am. And because I got to the place where I don't like who I am and I want to change and get better, that's where it began to happen. But when I look at these reactions and all this hate and all of this violence and all of the stuff going on, I'm like, the sad thing is, what it tells me is that those responses are a reflection of what's going on the inside of us. We need to, this country, we need to fix ourselves from the inside out. We're not going to fix ourselves from things on the outside. We need to fix our way out of this by fixing our way on the inside.
And the book, through a very, very readable story, helps us to walk through some of that. You've talked about the 180-degree mindset was one of the things I wanted us to talk about. There's obviously some other models and some other things in the book, and I don't want to give the whole book away because people need to go get a copy of The Observer by Todd Stottlemyre, which subtitled A Modern Fable on Mastering Your Thoughts and Emotions. And Todd, I get all sorts of books. People want to have me on, want to be on the show, as you probably aren't surprised. Much like what happened with you, that someone reached out, pitched us. And the first thing I thought, here's how this went. Oh, Todd Stottlemyre, that's interesting. Oh, a fable. I'm really not all that interested. Not because the fables aren't great, but oftentimes they're hard to have this conversation about, right?
Yeah.
Because I don't want to give away the story and all that sort of thing. So I'm really excited that we've been able to have the conversation and hopefully get people excited about the book without really telling them about the book, if that's fair.
Yeah. So, you know, what's funny is I've been asked a lot, Todd, why didn't you write a memoir? And there's a reason for that, is because I wanted to deliver the message, because I wanted people to gain a full understanding. My hope and prayer was that as they go through the book, they might find a place that they can better their life and have a life-changing moment. See, this book, this fable built with characters, the storyline is based on true life events that I personally went through. Lots of different scenes in the book. And what's really crazy is the main character is a woman. So it was as far away from being me as we could possibly take it, right?
Right.
And there's people, some of my friends are like, dude, you're a woman? And I'm like, no. So anyway, it was so fun. I mean, I've had so much fun with it, but here's what's funny is her son, sometimes I'm her son in the book. Sometimes I'm the main character, Kat. Sometimes I'm her father. Sometimes her father is my father. And so I weave in the stories of me and going through some difficult times. So why not a memoir though? Because I wanted it relatable. See, if someone reads my story and they're like, the first thing that they could have the opportunity of saying, I wanted to strip the excuses. They could say, yeah, Todd, you got great parents. You grew up in Yankee Stadium. Yogi Berra is your friend. You stood next to the outfield grass next to Mickey Mantle. You've been around great people. You've had a great education. You lived out your childhood dream. Easy for you, but not for me. See, I grew up this way. I grew up in an orphanage. I grew up on the street. I grew up in parents being split. I grew up with anger, getting beat. See, for me, it's like I didn't want someone to say, yeah, easy for that guy because of that. And then the other thing is it really allows me to get vulnerable, and it allows me to, Kat goes through it.
Yeah, right.
Right. So I don't have to say, hey, let me tell you guys, by the way, this one time I failed so miserably. I used improper language. I treated people really bad. So now I get to say that lady did that. So for me, it was fun. It was challenging as hell. But at the end of the day, and I also knew that, just like you said, fable, it's like, I don't know if I'm interested. Look, I wouldn't pick up a fable. In fairness, I want to be fair to all the listeners. I wouldn't pick one up, but I would tell you the other thing is, one of my favorite authors and a guy that's been an incredible mentor to me, writes incredible self-development books with an incredible messages through characters in a book. And I got excited about the way he wrote them. And I was like, I'm going to do that someday and marry the message to principles and lessons that you can use in your everyday life.
Let me guess. John Gordon.
No, you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Robin Sharma.
Oh, Robin. Oh, I should have guessed that because he's on the cover. Yes,
Yeah.
another great example. Yeah, exactly. I should have guessed that. So listen, everybody, I've got a few more questions that I want to ask Todd before we go, as we sort of shift gears here a little bit in the show. And this episode has not only been brought to you by Todd's new book, but also by our new book, The Long Distance Teammate, Stay Engaged and Connected While Working from Anywhere. So you can learn more about that by going to longdistanceteammate.com. And we hope that you'll do that. And I hope that you will get a copy of The Observer by Todd Stottlemyre as well. So before we finish though, Todd, I want to kind of just talk about you for a second, a little bit more. And so the first thing here is, what do you do for fun? Because clearly writing a fable, while you love that it's written, wasn't necessarily fun. What do you do for fun?
Yeah, writing that book was not fun. But what do I do for fun? I love the outdoors. I would tell you that we grew up in the Northwest, and love the outdoors. Matter of fact, I just got back not too long ago. I was up in Idaho on the Clearwater River. My brother owns a guide service up there, and we were steelhead fishing on the Clearwater River. I love to hike. A year ago, I went in and out of the Grand Canyon, coast to coast in one day, 26 miles. I love the challenge of hikes. I love new experiences, and I love getting outdoors, and I like to do things I've never done, and which really will just, because it's challenging, and it's like you go into something that you have no expertise on, and it's challenging because you're not going to be good at it. And then the other thing is you get to learn so many lessons because of the new experiences. So I love that. Like I said, I have 5 children. I would tell you, I love family barbecues. I love family dinners. I love when we all get together. I call it controlled chaos because it's chaos. But I love to go to my kids' events, and I love to travel. I love to stay in nice hotels and all of those things. So, but that's me.
And I also know you like to read. There's books behind you, and I know that because we talked about before I hit record here. So tell everybody what you're reading now, Todd.
Yeah, interesting is I picked up a book called Becoming Supernatural. Becoming Supernatural by Dr. Joe Dispenza. Now, here's what's really intriguing about this is I just wrote the book, The Observer, and it's about mastering your thoughts and emotions. Becoming Supernatural is all about your thoughts and emotions, but it dives deep behind thoughts and emotions and really goes into the science and all of the energy behind it. So it's so intriguing because as I read this book, there's so many things in that book, and I'm like, yes, I know I felt that, I've done that, or something, or I blew it at that. And so it's an incredible read. There's incredible science about changing states and about the power of our thought and about the power of our emotion, and taking those two things and then getting into present moment. And I talk a lot about present moment in my book, The Observer, but he takes the present moment to a whole new place. And it's just an incredible book. I would endorse it for sure.
Becoming Supernatural and The Observer. So Todd, last question for you. Where can people learn more about the book, get the book, learn more about your work? Where do you want to point people?
Well, I appreciate that, Kevin. Obviously you can get the book anywhere, your favorite bookstore. Amazon, of course, has the book, and or you can just simply come to toddofficial.com. You can kind of learn and see what I'm doing there and hang out with me at Todd Official. I try to write a blog every week. You can get connected to that. And then Of course, social media. You can connect with me on all across all the different social media, all right through toddofficial.com. So, but I appreciate that, Kevin.
Oh, it's my pleasure. So, Todd Stottlemyre, everyone, go get your copy of The Observer. But I have a question for all of you watching and listening before we finish. And the question is this important question. Now what? Other than going and buying a book, what else are you going to take from this conversation? What insight or idea did you have that now is time for you to put into action? What were you thinking as Todd was telling about his dad giving him those 3 things to remember to do? What were those 3 things for you? That where are you stuck? What coach do you need to find today? We could go right on through our conversation. The challenge, though, for you is what action are you going to take as a result of this? If not, entertaining as it might have been, it won't be nearly as valuable for you as it could be, as if you take that question, now what, and answer it. Todd, thanks for being here. It was a pleasure.
A pleasure for me. Thank you so much.
Everybody, before we go, we're here every week. We hope you'll come back. And if you like this and you're going to come back, you might as well join either our Facebook group or our LinkedIn group. Why? Because you can have access to other information. You can let us know who you'd like to have on, and you can even get access to some of these episodes early when they're done live. Go to remarkablepodcast.com/Facebook or remarkablepodcast.com/LinkedIn to do that. And while you're thinking about it, why don't you give us a recommendation as well? We love the feedback. And with that, we'll let you go, and we'll be back next week with another episode of the Remarkable Leadership Podcast.